The growing spotlight on Trump's confidant and the woman dubbed the human printer has revealed an alarming lapse in vetting those closest to the president. Stunning new reporting from MS Now details how Trump's closest aide, Natalie Harp, declined multiple times over more than a year to seek a routine security clearance normally obtained by West Wing staffers to work at the White House, according to two people familiar with the matter. Both people said Harp's reasoning for declining to complete the process was unknown. After concerns mounted among the White House counsel's office and security officials, the president himself intervened, and Harp in recent months filled out the forms to launch a formal federal background investigation and receive the clearance, one of the people said. I want to bring in MS Now senior investigative reporter Carol Leonnig and political analyst and host of the Bulwark Daily podcast, Tim Miller. Carol, is opting out even a thing? I've never heard before of a White House staffer just declining to go through the process.
Nor have I, and hats off to Jake Traylor and Jackie Alamany. I helped them a little, but they nailed this reporting, and I'm really impressed by what they were able to learn. It is unusual beyond anything I've seen before, but I think it's fair to remind people, Alicia, that Donald Trump's security clearance process for this administration, round 2 of the Trump White House, has been also unprecedented. You'll remember that he declined initially to agree to FBI background checks of any of his future nominees when he was in transition. He was late to finally strike an agreement for those background checks. And ultimately, as we reported here at MS Now, he only agreed to security clearances for cabinet secretaries and very, very, very senior officials. So a lot of background checks for officials never, ever actually were completed. So Natalie Harp, in this instance, is not so aberrant in Trump 2, but it is highly unusual, according to a national security official I spoke to, and was highly concerning because of the routine top secret material she has access to, quote unquote, by proximity. She has a security clearance by proximity just by dint of being with the president at all hours, when he is hearing from foreign leaders, when he is getting briefed on some material that only a handful of people are authorized to review or ever hear anything about.
And concerns from the Secret Service, what are they particularly concerned with here?
I'm so sorry. I couldn't hear you if you were asking.
No,
me
I'm curious because some of the concern was coming from folks inside the White House. Some was coming specifically from the Secret Service. And I wonder, sort of given your deep sourcing and reporting inside the Secret Service, what, if anything, you've heard from them about the complexity that this presented?
Yes. Well, the Secret Service is not responsible, as you know, for a background security check, which is usually done by the FBI, reviewed sometimes by the intelligence offices, and then ultimately vetted by a White House security office. However, the Secret Service registered concern, sources tell me, about the frequency with which Natalie Harp was basically by the president's side, the kinds of materials she had access to, and the lack of a sort of a hierarchical control on Natalie Harp. In other words, Susie Wiles is the chief of staff. Why was Natalie Harp able to avoid a basic and sort of what you consider fundamental part of being a member of the executive office staff? Why was she able to avoid that and all this time? It brings to mind for me, and sources at the Secret Service also reference this with me, the security clearance that the White House career staff did not agree that Jared Kushner was eligible to have. They did not think he could have the highest security clearance after concluding that foreign officials believed he was manipulable. And Donald Trump intervened in that instance to basically declare that this family member, the husband of his wife, would have a security clearance without any career staff signing off on it. It would be granted by him. The Secret Service, I'm told, took the position that the president decides who can have the most secure information. He's the ultimate security clearancer in chief, if you will. And the Secret Service, despite their concerns, believed that Donald Trump had that authority and deferred to it.
Tim, part of what has made this story so sticky is the response that the White House has had to it. They seem very thrown off by the use of a single person's name out there on the campaign trail. This story now has legs in light of this new reporting. Scott Jennings, who Politico reports is pitching himself to replace Caroline Leavitt, attempted to attack Senator Ossoff for invoking Harp. Take a listen and then we'll talk about it.
The implication is that a professional woman couldn't possibly have earned her position of trust in the White House without sleeping her way to the top. And when asked to defend it, Ossoff slinked away from it. No apology and no defense, like a sucker-punching coward.
So understanding, Tim, that is likely an audition. One, how did the audition go? And two, what does it tell you that they've had so much trouble moving off this story?
Yeah. It's hard to resist saying "quiet piggy" to Scott Jennings every time he starts talking about this and pretending like he cares about women's feelings while he shills for Donald Trump and auditions to be his press secretary. I mean, Donald Trump has made a habit of saying so much nastier things about women than this. And I mean, heck, even Jesse Waters over on Fox had the dignity, maybe is the word, or whatever, to not pretend to be outraged about this. Yeah, sure. Like whatever the word is, had the something to not pretend to be outraged about this, because it's just ridiculous on its face for shills for Donald Trump to pretend to care, about the way women are treated in the workplace. We don't need to list all the ways that Donald Trump has abused women physically and emotionally and verbally. So that's one element to this. The other thing is just the Harp story is partially sticky because, it's a real story, and these guys, Jennings and all of them, are the ones that keep invoking, this idea that it's an affair or whatever. And it's kind of like, regardless of what exactly is happening, I mean, even if this is just simply a situation where there is a staffer that is doting upon Donald Trump, there's a lot of things of interest about it. I mean, as Carol was just laying out, the Secret Service had interest. There was no background checks to this, and there's a lot of weird examples, and the letters that she writes to him are not the typical letters that get written from a staffer to a boss. I've worked for a lot of bosses I really, really liked, and, was never writing them MASH notes about how they're my sun and my moon, and, all of these other things about how, they need each other to survive. So she has close access, as Carol laid out, to very sensitive information. She's the one that determines what information Donald Trump gets a lot. I mean, I believe the very first story about Natalie Harp was in the Bulwark that we wrote in 2024 about how she was his human printer during his trial, and she was printing off all of the coverage of the trial. So that's a powerful role if you're the person that's shielding Trump from information or choosing what to show him. So look, I think that their response to this